Richard Lawson was a successful and arrogant tycoon known for his ruthless business tactics and extravagant lifestyle. He was feared and respected in equal measure, often seen as a man who got what he wanted by any means necessary. Richard enjoyed flaunting his wealth and looking down on those less fortunate. One evening, Richard decided to dine at an upscale restaurant, a place he frequented to network with other elite businessmen. As he entered the restaurant, he was greeted with the usual deference from the staff, who were well aware of his status and influence. Seated at a prime table, Richard began his meal, savoring the finest dishes on the menu. As he glanced around the restaurant, his gaze fell upon a modestly dressed family seated in a corner. They seemed out of place in such a luxurious setting. Richard's eyes narrowed as he observed them. The family consisted of a father, mother, and their young son. They appeared to be celebrating a special occasion, their faces glowing with happiness despite their humble appearance. Richard felt a surge of disdain. He could not comprehend why people of their kind would even dare to enter a place meant for the elite. Determined to assert his superiority, Richard called over the restaurant manager. "What is this family doing here?" he asked, his voice dripping with contempt. "This establishment is for people of a certain caliber, not for the likes of them." The manager, visibly uncomfortable, tried to explain that the family had made a reservation and was paying for their meal like any other customer. But Richard was not satisfied. "I don't care," he snapped. "Either they leave, or I will." The manager, fearing the loss of Richard's patronage, reluctantly approached the family. The father, John Carter, looked up as the manager nervously explained the situation. "I'm sorry, but we have to ask you to leave. There's been a complaint." John's face fell. "We're celebrating my son's birthday," he said quietly. "We saved up for this." Richard watched with a smug expression as the family gathered their belongings, their evening ruined. The young boy clutched his father's hand, confusion and sadness in his eyes. The scene gave Richard a perverse sense of satisfaction, reinforcing his belief in his own superiority. As the family left the restaurant, John glanced back at Richard. Their eyes met, and John's gaze was filled with a quiet determination that Richard dismissed as insignificant. Little did he know that this encounter would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. Richard continued his meal, oblivious to the impact of his actions. For him, it was just another evening where he had asserted his dominance. He had no way of knowing that John Carter was not a man to be underestimated, and that the repercussions of his arrogance were already in motion. John Carter left the restaurant with his family, their spirits dampened by the humiliating encounter. His wife, Emily, tried to console their son, Tommy, but John's mind was already racing. He was not one to accept such blatant disrespect, especially in front of his family. Determined to right the wrong, John decided he would take action against Richard Lawson. That night, after putting Tommy to bed, John sat down with Emily to discuss their next steps. "I won't let him get away with this," John said, his voice filled with resolve. "We deserve respect, just like anyone else." Emily, always supportive, nodded. "What do you plan to do?" John thought for a moment. "I have some ideas. I need to gather more information about Lawson and his business. There must be something we can use against him." The next day, John began his investigation. He spent hours researching Richard Lawson's business empire, looking for any vulnerabilities. He learned that Richard's company, Lawson Enterprises, had a reputation for cutting corners and engaging in shady dealings. John knew that exposing these practices could tarnish Richard's image and force him to confront the consequences of his arrogance. John also discovered that Lawson Enterprises was facing financial difficulties. The company had several ongoing projects that were behind schedule and over budget. John saw an opportunity to strike. Through his network of contacts, John found an insider willing to share confidential information about Lawson Enterprises. Armed with this knowledge, John devised a plan to expose Richard's unethical business practices. He knew it would be a long shot, but he was determined to see it through. Meanwhile, Richard Lawson remained blissfully unaware of John's efforts. He continued his life of luxury and excess, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. His arrogance blinded him to the possibility that someone like John could pose a threat to his empire. John's first move was to contact a journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. He met with Rachel Thompson, a tenacious reporter with a reputation for taking down powerful figures. John shared everything he had learned about Lawson Enterprises, including the insider information. Rachel was intrigued by John's story and agreed to investigate further. "If what you're saying is true, this could be a huge scandal," she said. "But we need solid evidence." John nodded. "I'll help in any way I can. This man needs to be held accountable." Over the next few weeks, Rachel and John worked tirelessly to gather evidence. They interviewed former employees, reviewed financial records, and uncovered a series of unethical practices that painted a damning picture of Richard Lawson and his company. As the investigation progressed, Rachel began writing a series of articles exposing Lawson Enterprises. The first article was published with a headline that grabbed everyone's attention: "Tycoon's Empire Built on Lies and Deception." Richard was shocked when he saw the headline. He tried to dismiss it as a smear campaign, but as more articles were published, the evidence became undeniable. Investors began to withdraw their support, and the company's stock price plummeted. In a desperate attempt to salvage his reputation, Richard called a press conference. He stood before the cameras, trying to maintain his composure. "These allegations are baseless," he claimed. "We have always operated with the highest standards of integrity. But the damage was done." The media frenzy continued, and Richard's empire began to crumble. John watched with satisfaction as the man who had humiliated his family faced the consequences of his actions. As the articles continued to expose Richard Lawson's unethical practices, the pressure mounted. The media, investors, and even some of Richard's business associates turned against him. The once untouchable tycoon found himself isolated and vulnerable. Richard's attempts to dismiss the allegations as baseless only fueled the fire. Rachel Thompson's investigative pieces were meticulously researched and backed by irrefutable evidence. Each new article brought to light another layer of corruption, fraud, and exploitation within Lawson Enterprises. John Carter, watching from the sidelines, felt a mix of vindication and anxiety. He had taken a significant risk by going up against someone as powerful as Richard, but the tide was turning in his favor. Emily and Tommy sensed the tension but supported John's decision to fight for justice. One morning, Richard received a call from his legal team. The news was grim. Several lawsuits had been filed against Lawson Enterprises by former employees and business partners who claimed they had been wronged. The legal battles threatened to drain the company's already strained resources. Richard slammed the phone down in frustration. His once vast empire was collapsing around him, and he was powerless to stop it. Desperation began to set in, and he turned to drastic measures to try to salvage what was left. In a final attempt to protect his assets, Richard decided to sell off some of his most valuable properties. He hoped that by liquidating these assets, He could generate enough cash to fight the lawsuits and stabilize the company. However, the negative publicity surrounding Lawson Enterprises made potential buyers wary, and Richard struggled to find interested parties. As the situation worsened, Richard's personal life also began to unravel. Friends and acquaintances distanced themselves, fearing association with his tarnished reputation. His social standing, once a source of pride, crumbled alongside his business. In the midst of this chaos, John continued to monitor the situation closely. He knew that Richard's downfall was imminent, but he also understood the importance of staying vigilant. The fight for justice was far from over. One evening, John received a call from Rachel Thompson. "John, I have some important news," she said. "We've uncovered more evidence that could potentially lead to criminal charges against Richard Lawson. This could be the final blow to his empire." John's heart raced. "That's incredible, Rachel. What's the next step?" "We're working with the authorities to ensure that justice is served," Rachel replied. "There's a strong case against him, and with this new evidence, it's likely he'll face significant legal consequences." As Rachel and her team prepared to hand over the evidence to law enforcement, Richard's paranoia grew. He sensed that his time was running out and that his enemies were closing in. The once confident and arrogant tycoon was now a shadow of his former self, plagued by fear and desperation. The following week, a team of federal agents arrived at Lawson Enterprises headquarters with a search warrant. They seized documents, computers, and other evidence that could potentially incriminate Richard and his associates. The media frenzy that followed was relentless, and the image of Richard being escorted out of his office in handcuffs was broadcast nationwide. John watched the news coverage with a sense of accomplishment. He had stood up to a powerful adversary and had played a key role in bringing him to justice. His family, who had endured the humiliation of that fateful night at the restaurant, could now hold their heads high. In the weeks that followed, Richard faced multiple charges, including fraud, embezzlement, and insider trading. His empire was dismantled, and he was left to face the consequences of his actions in court. For John, the victory was bittersweet. He had achieved what he set out to do, but he also recognized the toll it had taken on everyone involved. He hoped that the downfall of Richard Lawson would serve as a reminder that arrogance and cruelty could never prevail in the face of justice and determination. Richard Lawson's trial began amidst a media frenzy. Every detail of the case was scrutinized by the public and the press. The courtroom was packed with journalists, former employees, and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the downfall of the once mighty tycoon. The prosecution presented a compelling case, backed by the mountain of evidence uncovered by Rachel Thompson and her team. Former employees testified about the toxic work environment, unethical business practices, and financial manipulations orchestrated by Richard. The courtroom heard tales of intimidation, deceit, and exploitation, painting a damning picture of Richard's reign at Lawson Enterprises. Richard's defense team struggled to counter the overwhelming evidence. They attempted to discredit witnesses and downplay the severity of the charges, but their efforts were futile. The truth was undeniable, and Richard's reputation was in tatters. As the trial progressed, Richard's arrogance faded. He sat silently, his once dominant presence diminished. The man who had reveled in his power and wealth was now exposed as a fraud, his empire built on lies and corruption. John Carter attended the trial regularly, sitting quietly in the back of the courtroom. He observed Richard's fall from grace with a mix of satisfaction and contemplation. John's determination to seek justice had led to this moment, and he hoped it would bring closure to his family and all those wronged by Richard. The climax of the trial came when the prosecution introduced the new evidence Rachel had discovered. Detailed records of embezzlement, insider trading, and fraudulent activities were presented to the court. It was the final nail in the coffin for Richard Lawson. The jury deliberated for only a few hours before returning with a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted in whispers and gasps as the judge delivered the sentence. Richard Lawson was to serve a lengthy prison term, and his assets were to be seized and liquidated to compensate his victims. The news of Richard's conviction spread quickly. Headlines across the country highlighted the story of the arrogant tycoon brought to justice. For many, it was a tale of retribution and the triumph of truth over deceit. John felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had not only avenged the humiliation his family had suffered, but also helped bring down a corrupt empire. As he left the courthouse, he was approached by Rachel Thompson. "John, you did it," Rachel said with a smile. "Your determination made this possible." John shook his head modestly. "We did it, Rachel. Your investigative work was crucial. I couldn't have done it without you." Rachel nodded. "It was a team effort. Now, what's next for you and your family?" John paused, reflecting on the journey they had been through. "We move forward. This chapter is closed, and it's time to focus on the future. I want to make sure my family can heal and find peace." As the dust settled from the trial, John and his family began to rebuild their lives. The public support and recognition of their courage helped them regain their confidence. John received numerous offers for speaking engagements and opportunities to advocate for ethical business practices. Emily and Tommy were proud of John's strength and perseverance. They felt a renewed sense of security, knowing that justice had been served. The community, inspired by John's story, rallied around them, offering support and solidarity. In the months that followed, John used his newfound platform to raise awareness about corporate accountability and the importance of standing up against injustice. He worked with various organizations to promote transparency and ethical behavior in the business world. For Richard Lawson, prison was a harsh reality check. The man who had once commanded fear and respect was now just another inmate, stripped of his power and influence. As he served his sentence, Richard had plenty of time to reflect on his actions and the consequences they had wrought. John's life, though forever changed by the events, found a new sense of purpose. He had fought for justice and won, and in doing so, had shown his family and the world that integrity and perseverance could overcome even the most formidable challenges. With Richard Lawson's conviction behind him, John Carter focused on rebuilding his family's life. The media attention surrounding the trial had made him a local hero, admired for his bravery and determination. Offers of support and opportunities flooded in, giving John a platform to advocate for change. John decided to start a non-profit organization aimed at promoting corporate accountability and supporting victims of corporate malpractice. Named Integrity First, the organization quickly gained traction. People from all walks of life joined the cause, inspired by John's story and driven by a desire to make a difference. Emily, supportive as always, helped John with the administrative side of the non-profit. She managed communications, organized events, and ensured that the organization ran smoothly. Together, they made a formidable team, united by a common goal. Tommy, too, found inspiration in his father's actions. He excelled in school, driven by a newfound sense of purpose and pride in his family. His teachers noticed the change, and he often shared his father's story as a testament to the power of standing up for what is right. As the months passed, Integrity First made significant strides. They held seminars, workshops, and public forums, educating people about their rights and how to identify unethical business practices. They also provided legal support to those who had been wronged, ensuring that they received the justice they deserved. One day, John received an invitation to speak at a prestigious business ethics conference. The event was attended by leaders from various industries, eager to learn from his experiences and insights. John accepted the invitation, seeing it as an opportunity to spread his message further. At the conference, John spoke passionately about his journey, the importance of integrity, and the need for accountability in the corporate world. His speech was met with a standing ovation, and many attendees approached him afterward to express their admiration and support. Among the attendees was a prominent business leader named Clara Mitchell. Clara was known for her advocacy of ethical business practices and had been following John's story closely. She approached John with a proposition. "John, your story is incredibly inspiring," Clara said. "I believe we can do great things together. I would like to partner with Integrity First and offer my resources to expand its reach and impact." John was taken aback by the offer, but quickly recognized the potential. "Thank you, Clara. Your support would mean the world to us. Together, we can make a real difference." With Clara's backing, Integrity First expanded rapidly. They opened new branches across the country, reaching more people and providing greater support. The organization's influence grew, and John's vision of a world where integrity was the norm, not the exception, began to take shape. Despite the increased responsibilities, John made sure to prioritize his family. He spent quality time with Emily and Tommy, cherishing the moments of peace and happiness they had fought so hard to achieve. Their bond grew stronger, and they found joy in the simple things, like family dinners and weekend outings. One evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, Tommy spoke up. "Dad, I'm really proud of you. You've shown me that doing the right thing is always important, no matter how hard it is." John smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Thank you, Tommy. And I'm proud of you too. Remember, we all have the power to make a difference, no matter how small our actions might seem." Emily added, "We've been through a lot, but we've come out stronger. I'm grateful for every moment we have together." As they continued to build their future, John and his family never forgot the lessons they had learned. They remained committed to their values, driven by a desire to create a better world for themselves and others. Through Integrity First, John continued to advocate for justice and accountability. He worked tirelessly to ensure that no one else would suffer the way his family had. And as his influence grew, so did the impact of his message. John's story became a beacon of hope for many, proving that even in the face of great adversity, integrity and perseverance could prevail. And with his family by his side, he faced the future with confidence, knowing that together they could overcome any challenge. While John's efforts to rebuild his life and advocate for corporate accountability were gaining momentum, Richard Lawson was experiencing the full impact of his actions. In prison, Richard found himself stripped of the luxuries and power he once took for granted. He struggled to adjust to his new reality, where his arrogance held no sway. Richard's days were filled with introspection and regret. He replayed the events that led to his downfall, recognizing the pivotal moment in the restaurant where his humiliation of John's family set everything in motion. The isolation of prison gave him ample time to ponder his choices and their far-reaching consequences. As news of Richard's conviction spread, those who had been wronged by him felt a sense of justice. Among them were former employees and business partners who had suffered under his ruthless practices. They took solace in knowing that the man who had once wielded such power had been held accountable. However, the ripple effects of Richard's downfall extended beyond those directly affected by his actions. The scandal surrounding Lawson Enterprises had a profound impact on the business community. Companies across the country began to re-evaluate their practices, wary of facing similar repercussions. Corporate boards implemented stricter oversight, and whistleblower protections were strengthened. The case of Richard Lawson served as a cautionary tale, reminding executives of the importance of ethical behavior. The business landscape began to shift, with a renewed emphasis on integrity and accountability. John's role in exposing Richard's corruption brought him into contact with a wide network of like-minded individuals. He found allies in unexpected places, including former adversaries who had come to respect his unwavering commitment to justice. These connections proved invaluable as Integrity First expanded its reach and influence. Meanwhile, Rachel Thompson's career soared as a result of her investigative work on the Lawson case. Her articles had not only exposed a corrupt tycoon, but also highlighted the power of investigative journalism. Rachel received accolades and awards, solidifying her reputation as a fearless journalist dedicated to uncovering the truth. Despite his initial satisfaction with Richard's downfall, John couldn't ignore the emotional toll the battle had taken on him and his family. The relentless pursuit of justice had brought its own set of challenges, and John often found himself grappling with feelings of exhaustion and uncertainty. Emily, ever perceptive, noticed the strain on John. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet of their home, she gently broached the subject. "John, you've done so much for us and for so many others. But you also need to take care of yourself. We need you, healthy and happy." John sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, Emily. It's just hard to switch off. There's always more to do, more people to help." Emily took his hand in hers. "We'll always be here to support you, but remember that it's okay to rest. You've earned it." Taking Emily's words to heart, John made a conscious effort to find a better balance between his work and personal life. He delegated more responsibilities within Integrity First, and took time to recharge. This shift not only benefited his well-being, but also strengthened his family's bond. As the anniversary of Richard Lawson's conviction approached, John reflected on the journey they had all been through. It had been a year of challenges and triumphs, but most importantly, it had been a year of growth and healing. To commemorate the occasion, Integrity First organized a public forum on corporate ethics and accountability. The event drew a diverse crowd, eager to learn from John's experiences and engage in meaningful discussions about creating a fairer business environment. John stood before the audience, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "This journey has taught me that integrity is not just a word, it's a way of life. We must hold ourselves and others accountable, not just for our actions, but for the impact those actions have on the world around us." The forum was a resounding success, further solidifying Integrity First as a leading voice in the fight for ethical business practices. John's message resonated with many, inspiring a new generation of advocates committed to making a difference. As the event drew to a close, John looked out at the sea of faces, each one a testament to the power of resilience and determination. He knew that the fight for justice was ongoing, but he also knew that he was not alone. With his family by his side and a community of supporters behind him, John felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Integrity First continued to grow, John's network expanded, bringing him into contact with people from all walks of life. One day, John received a call from a woman named Sarah, who introduced herself as Richard Lawson's estranged sister. Intrigued, John agreed to meet with her. They arranged to meet at a small cafe. When John arrived, he found Sarah already seated, nervously stirring a cup of coffee. She looked up as he approached, offering a tentative smile. "Thank you for meeting with me, John. I know this might seem unusual." John sat down, his curiosity piqued. "It's no problem, Sarah. What can I do for you?" Sarah took a deep breath. "I've been following everything that's happened with Richard. It's been a lot to process. We were never close, but seeing him go through this has been difficult. I wanted to talk to you because I think there's something you should know." John listened intently as Sarah shared her story. She explained that their family had always been troubled, with Richard often taking on the role of the protector. However, his methods and arrogance eventually drove a wedge between him and the rest of the family. Sarah had distanced herself years ago, but recent events had brought old memories back to the surface. "Richard wasn't always this way," Sarah said, her voice tinged with sadness. "He used to be kind, but power changed him. I believe he lost himself in his quest for success and control. I came to you because I think it's important to understand the full picture." John nodded, understanding the complexity of human nature and how circumstances could shape someone's character. "I appreciate you sharing this with me, Sarah. I know Richard's actions have hurt many people, but it's important to see the whole person, not just the mistakes." Sarah looked relieved. "Thank you, John. I've felt so much guilt for not being able to help him. I thought that maybe, through your work, you could reach him in a way that none of us could." Their conversation continued, with Sarah revealing more about Richard's past and the family dynamics that had influenced him. John realized that while Richard had indeed caused much harm, he was also a product of his environment and personal struggles. As they parted ways, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. He decided to visit Richard in prison, not to confront him, but to offer a chance for reconciliation and understanding. He hoped that by reaching out, he could help Richard find some semblance of peace and perhaps a path to redemption. A week later, John found himself at the prison, going through the security protocols. He was escorted to a visitation room where Richard was already seated, looking weary and defeated. When Richard saw John, his eyes widened in surprise. "John, what are you doing here?" Richard asked, his voice barely above a whisper. John sat down across from him, meeting his gaze. "I came to talk, Richard. I met your sister, Sarah. She told me about your family, about how things used to be." Richard looked away, his expression pained. "I don't know what you hope to accomplish by being here. My life is ruined." "I'm not here to gloat or to bring up the past," John said gently. "I'm here to understand and to offer a chance for you to make amends. It's never too late to change, Richard." Richard's eyes filled with tears. "You don't understand, John. I've lost everything. My empire, my freedom, my dignity. How can I possibly make amends?" John leaned forward, his voice steady and compassionate. "By starting with yourself. Acknowledge the mistakes, forgive yourself, and take steps to be better. It won't be easy, but it's possible." For the first time in a long while, Richard felt a glimmer of hope. He and John talked for hours, discussing the past, the present, and the possibility of a different future. Richard realized that while he couldn't undo the harm he had caused, he could still work towards a better path. Their conversation marked the beginning of a slow but meaningful transformation for Richard. With John's support, he began participating in prison programs, offering advice to other inmates, and reflecting on his life choices. The process was painful and filled with setbacks, but it also brought moments of clarity and growth. For John, the experience reinforced the importance of empathy and second chances. He continued his work with integrity first, inspired by the belief that even those who had strayed could find redemption. His journey, once driven by a desire for retribution, had evolved into a mission of healing and hope. As the months passed, John's visit to Richard became a regular occurrence. Each visit was a step towards healing for both men. John found a sense of closure in understanding Richard's past and motivations, while Richard began to confront the demons that had driven his ruthless behavior. Richard's transformation was slow but steady. He participated in therapy sessions offered by the prison, joined support groups, and even started teaching a business ethics class to fellow inmates. The man who once epitomized arrogance and greed was gradually becoming a mentor and a source of inspiration for others. John's advocacy through Integrity First continued to make waves. The organization launched new initiatives to educate young professionals about the importance of ethical practices in business. Workshops, seminars, and outreach programs became cornerstones of their mission. John often shared Richard's story, anonymized, as a powerful example of the consequences of unethical behavior and the possibility of redemption. Emily and Tommy stood by John's side, contributing to Integrity First in their own ways. Emily's organizational skills ensured the smooth operation of events and programs, while Tommy, inspired by his father's journey, started a youth outreach branch to engage students and young professionals. The Carter family had turned their experience into a beacon of hope for many. One particularly memorable event was a charity gala organized by Integrity First. It was held to raise funds for victims of corporate malpractice and to support educational programs. The venue was filled with supporters, partners, and those who had been impacted by John's work. During his speech at the gala, John spoke from the heart. Our journey has been one of pain, struggle, and ultimately, growth. We've learned that integrity and compassion are the foundations upon which we must build our lives and businesses. This organization, and everyone here tonight, is a testament to the power of standing up for what is right. The applause that followed was thunderous. Among the attendees was Clara Mitchell, who had become one of the most vocal supporters of Integrity First. She approached John after the speech, her eyes shining with admiration. "John, your story and your work have inspired so many people," Clara said. "It's incredible to see the impact you've had. I want to discuss how we can take Integrity First to the next level." Their conversation led to a partnership that expanded the organization's reach even further. Clara's resources and network opened doors to new opportunities, allowing Integrity First to influence policy changes and corporate practices on a larger scale. As the organization grew, John remained grounded in his commitment to his family. He ensured that, despite his busy schedule, there was always time for Emily and Tommy. Family dinners, weekend trips, and quiet evenings at home became cherished rituals that kept them connected. One weekend, the Carters decided to visit a nearby nature reserve. It was a place where they could escape the hustle and bustle of their daily lives and enjoy the tranquility of the outdoors. As they hiked through the forest, John reflected on how far they had come. "Dad, I've been thinking," Tommy said, breaking the silence. "What you've done with Integrity First is amazing, but I want to make sure we keep reaching out to young people. They need to learn about ethics and integrity from the start." John smiled, proud of his son's insight. "You're right, Tommy. Education is the key to lasting change. We'll make sure that's a priority," Emily added, And let's not forget about the importance of balance. We need to take care of ourselves and each other, just as much as we take care of our work. The conversation highlighted the core values that had guided the Carters through their journey: integrity, compassion, and family. They knew that their work was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, united by their shared commitment to making the world a better place. Back at the mansion, Richard continued his journey of redemption. He corresponded regularly with John, sharing updates on his progress and reflections on his past actions. The relationship that had begun in conflict had evolved into one of mutual respect and understanding. Richard's letters often included insights he had gained from his time in prison. "John, I've learned more about myself in these walls than I ever did in the boardroom. Your visits and your faith in my ability to change have given me hope. I want to use whatever time I have left to make amends and contribute positively to the world." John treasured these letters, seeing them as a testament to the power of forgiveness and the possibility of change. He knew that Richard's journey was a complex and ongoing process, but he was committed to supporting him every step of the way. As the years passed, Integrity First became a leading voice in the fight for corporate accountability and ethical practices. John's story, once a personal struggle for justice, had sparked a movement that touched countless lives. His legacy was one of resilience, compassion, and unwavering commitment to integrity. With the success of Integrity First and the ongoing transformation of Richard Lawson, John Carter's journey had taken on new dimensions. The organization's influence continued to grow, and its initiatives began to reach a global audience. One day, John received an invitation to speak at an international business ethics conference in London. This was a prestigious event that brought together leaders from various industries to discuss the importance of ethical practices in business. John accepted the invitation, recognizing it as an opportunity to share his message on a larger stage. Emily and Tommy decided to accompany him on the trip, turning it into a family adventure. The conference was held in a historic venue, filled with attendees eager to hear from experts and visionaries. On the day of his speech, John stood before an audience of hundreds. He spoke passionately about his experiences, the rise of Integrity First, and the importance of integrity in every aspect of life. His words resonated deeply with the audience, sparking discussions and inspiring many to reconsider their own practices. After the speech, John was approached by several prominent figures who expressed their admiration and interest in collaborating. Among them was a woman named Eleanor Parker, the CEO of a multinational corporation known for its philanthropic efforts. Eleanor had been following John's work and saw potential for a partnership that could amplify their impact. "John, your story is incredibly powerful," Eleanor said. "I believe we can achieve great things together. Let's discuss how we can support each other's initiatives and make a real difference on a global scale." John was intrigued by the proposition. "Thank you, Eleanor. I'd love to explore how we can collaborate. Together, we can reach more people and create lasting change." Their conversation led to a strategic partnership between Integrity First and Eleanor's corporation. The collaboration focused on launching global campaigns to promote ethical business practices, support victims of corporate malpractice, and provide education and resources to underserved communities. Back in the United States, the impact of this partnership was soon felt. New programs were developed, including international seminars, scholarships for students pursuing careers in business ethics, and grants for small businesses committed to ethical practices. The reach of Integrity First expanded, touching lives across continents. Meanwhile, Richard Lawson's journey of redemption continued. With John's encouragement, Richard started writing a memoir from prison, detailing his rise, fall, and the lessons he had learned. The process was cathartic for Richard, allowing him to confront his past and envision a future where he could contribute positively to society. John and Richard's correspondence remained a source of inspiration for both men. Richard often shared drafts of his memoir with John, seeking feedback and guidance. John, in turn, provided insights and support, helping Richard refine his story and articulate the deeper truths he had uncovered. As the memoir took shape, Richard realized that it could serve as a powerful tool for change. He hoped that by sharing his story, he could warn others against the dangers of unchecked ambition and inspire them to choose a path of integrity. He also wanted to make amends to those he had wronged, donating the proceeds from the book to Integrity First and other charitable causes. In the midst of these developments, John continued to focus on his family. Emily and Tommy were his anchors, providing love and stability in the midst of their busy lives. They spent time together exploring new places, enjoying simple pleasures, and cherishing the bond that had grown stronger through their shared experiences. One evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, John shared the latest updates on Integrity First and Richard's memoir. Tommy, now a teenager, listened intently, his eyes shining with admiration. "Dad, it's amazing to see how much has changed since everything started," Tommy said. "I'm really proud of what you've accomplished, and it's incredible that Richard is working on his memoir. I think it will help a lot of people." Emily added, "We've come a long way, and it's because we've faced everything together. I'm grateful for every moment we've had and for the difference we've made." John smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "None of this would have been possible without your support. We've turned our challenges into opportunities, and we've made a real impact. But there's still so much more to do." As the Carters continued their journey, they remained committed to their values and to each other. Their story was one of resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of integrity. They knew that their work was far from over, but they faced the future with confidence, knowing that together, they could overcome any obstacle and create a better world for themselves and for others. Months passed, and Richard Lawson's memoir neared completion. The process of writing had been transformative for Richard, allowing him to reflect deeply on his past and articulate the lessons he had learned. With John's guidance, Richard had crafted a narrative that was both honest and hopeful, capturing the complexities of his journey from arrogance to humility. John arranged for the manuscript to be reviewed by a reputable publisher, who saw its potential to make a significant impact. The publisher agreed to release the memoir, with all proceeds going to charitable causes, particularly those related to corporate ethics and victims of malpractice. The announcement of Richard's memoir generated considerable media interest. People were intrigued by the story of a fallen tycoon seeking redemption, and the book was anticipated to be a bestseller. As the release date approached, John and Richard prepared for a series of interviews and public appearances to promote the memoir. In one of their first interviews, Richard and John sat together on a popular talk show. The host, a well-known journalist, opened the discussion with a question directed at Richard. "Richard, your story is one of the most remarkable journeys we've seen in recent years. What motivated you to write this memoir and share your experiences so publicly?" Richard took a deep breath before answering. "I realized that my actions had caused immense harm, not just to individuals but to entire communities. Writing this memoir was my way of acknowledging those mistakes, understanding their impact, and hopefully preventing others from making the same errors. It's about accountability, growth, and the possibility of redemption." The host turned to John. "John, you've played a significant role in Richard's transformation. What has this journey meant for you? John smiled thoughtfully. It's been a profound experience. Seeing Richard confront his past and strive for change has reinforced my belief in the power of integrity and second chances. This journey has shown me that even those who have strayed far from the path can find their way back with the right support and determination. The interview resonated with viewers, many of whom saw in Richard's story a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations for change. The memoir, titled From Power to Humility, A Tycoon's Redemption, quickly climbed the bestseller lists upon its release. It sparked widespread discussions about corporate ethics, accountability, and the potential for personal transformation. As the book tour continued, Richard visited various cities, speaking at universities, corporate events, and community centers. His speeches were candid and introspective, emphasizing the importance of ethical behavior and the lessons he had learned through his downfall and subsequent journey. Audiences responded with a mix of empathy and admiration, seeing in Richard's story a beacon of hope. One particularly poignant event took place at a university where Richard spoke to a group of business students. After his talk, a young woman approached him with tears in her eyes. "Mr. Lawson, thank you for sharing your story. My father lost his job because of your company's actions, and it devastated our family. Hearing you acknowledge your mistakes and commit to making amends has brought some closure for us." Richard, visibly moved, responded with sincerity. "I'm deeply sorry for the pain I caused your family. I hope my journey can help prevent such harm in the future. If there's anything I can do to assist your family now, please let me know." This exchange was a testament to the healing power of accountability and the importance of facing one's past with humility and a genuine desire to make things right. Back at home, John continued to support Integrity First while balancing his family life. The organization's partnership with Eleanor Parker's corporation yielded remarkable results, expanding their reach and impact globally. Educational programs, scholarships, and grants flourished, creating a ripple effect of positive change. One evening, as John and Emily sat on their porch watching the sunset, they reflected on how far they had come. Emily squeezed John's hand, her eyes filled with pride. "You've done so much good, John. You've turned our hardships into something meaningful and impactful. I'm so proud of you." John smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "We've done it together, Emily. Everything we've accomplished has been because of our strength and support as a family, and there's still so much more we can do." Tommy joined them, bringing a tray of lemonade. "I was thinking," he began, "about starting a mentorship program through Integrity First. We could connect young professionals with experienced mentors to guide them in ethical practices from the start." John and Emily exchanged proud glances. "That's a fantastic idea, Tommy," John said. "Let's make it happen." As the Carters looked towards the future, they knew that their work was far from over. Their journey of integrity, compassion, and resilience would continue, driven by their commitment to making the world a better place. With the continued success of Richard's memoir and the expanding reach of Integrity First, John and his family found themselves busier than ever. The organization's initiatives were making significant strides, but with growth came new challenges. One of the pressing issues was the need for additional resources to support their expanding programs. One day, John received an unexpected phone call from Eleanor Parker. "John, I've been approached by someone who might be able to help us," she began. "His name is Edward Marshall, a prominent figure in the tech industry. He's expressed interest in supporting our mission and would like to meet with you." John was intrigued but cautious. "Eleanor, I appreciate the lead, but I've heard mixed things about Edward Marshall. His business practices haven't always aligned with our values. Eleanor responded thoughtfully. I understand your concerns, John. But Edward reached out specifically because he's been following your work and wants to make a change. I believe everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. After considering Eleanor's words, John agreed to meet with Edward. They arranged a lunch meeting at a neutral venue. As John arrived, he found Edward already seated, his demeanor confident yet approachable. John, thank you for agreeing to meet with me, Edward began, extending a hand. I've been following your work with Integrity First and Richard Lawson's transformation. It's inspiring. John shook his hand, studying Edward's expression. Thank you, Edward. I appreciate your interest. What made you reach out to us? Edward sighed, his gaze momentarily distant. I've built a successful career, but it's come at a cost. I've made decisions I'm not proud of, and I've hurt people along the way. Seeing what you've achieved with Richard gave me hope. I want to use my resources to make amends and support your mission. John listened intently, weighing Edward's sincerity. I appreciate your honesty, Edward. We're always open to collaboration, but our work is deeply rooted in ethical practices. Any partnership must align with our values. Edward nodded. I understand completely. I'm willing to undergo scrutiny and ensure my contributions are transparent. I want to learn from you and your organization, and I'm committed to making a genuine change. Their conversation continued over lunch, delving into specifics about potential collaborations. Edward proposed significant financial support and offered to leverage his tech expertise to develop tools and platforms that could enhance Integrity First's outreach and impact. John left the meeting cautiously optimistic. He discussed the potential partnership with Emily and Tommy, who both agreed that Edward's involvement could bring valuable resources to their mission, provided his intentions were genuine. Over the next few months, Edward underwent a rigorous vetting process. He attended workshops and seminars organized by Integrity First, demonstrating a genuine willingness to learn and adapt. His efforts didn't go unnoticed, and soon, Edward became a visible advocate for ethical business practices within the tech industry. The partnership flourished, leading to the development of an innovative online platform that connected professionals with ethical mentors, offered educational resources, and provided a space for sharing experiences and best practices. This platform, named Ethics Connect, quickly gained traction and became a cornerstone of Integrity First's educational initiatives. The success of Ethics Connect further cemented Edward's commitment to the cause. He became a key figure in the organization, using his influence to advocate for systemic changes in corporate governance and ethical practices. One day, as John and Edward were reviewing the platform's latest updates, Edward shared a personal revelation. John, I want to thank you. Your work, your family's story, and Richard's transformation have given me a new perspective. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm doing something meaningful. John smiled, recognizing the sincerity in Edward's words. I'm glad to hear that, Edward. We've all made mistakes, but what matters is how we choose to move forward. Your commitment to change is commendable, and it's making a real difference. As Integrity First continued to thrive, John reflected on the unexpected alliances and the power of second chances. The organization's reach extended further than he had ever imagined, and its impact was felt across industries and communities. Back at home, the Carters celebrated these milestones together. Emily and Tommy were proud of John's leadership and the collective efforts that had brought Integrity First to new heights. Their shared commitment to integrity and compassion had transformed their lives and touched countless others. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Tommy shared exciting news. "Dad, I've been accepted into a leadership program that focuses on ethical practices in business. I want to continue what we've started here and make a difference on a larger scale." John and Emily beamed with pride. "That's fantastic, Tommy," John said. "You're already making a difference, and I'm sure this program will give you even more tools to continue our mission." Emily added, "We've always believed in leading by example, and you're doing just that. We're so proud of you." The Carters knew that their journey was far from over. They faced the future with confidence, knowing that their values and dedication would guide them through any challenge. Together, they continued to build a legacy of integrity, compassion, and hope, inspiring others to join them in creating a better world. With the success of Ethics Connect and the strengthening partnership with Edward Marshall, Integrity First continued to flourish, touching more lives and making a broader impact than John had ever imagined. The organization's initiatives were now being recognized globally, and John found himself invited to speak at numerous international forums and conferences. One particular invitation stood out: a keynote speech at the Global Ethics Summit in Geneva. This event was one of the most prestigious gatherings of leaders in business, politics, and academia, all focused on promoting ethical practices and integrity. John accepted the invitation, viewing it as an opportunity to showcase the incredible work of Integrity First, and to further inspire change on a global scale. As the date of the summit approached, John spent hours preparing his speech, reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought about the challenges they had faced, the lives they had touched, and the unexpected allies they had found along the way. His speech was a testament to the power of integrity, compassion, and the possibility of redemption. The day of the summit arrived, and the atmosphere in Geneva was electric. The venue was filled with delegates from around the world, all eager to hear from the leading voices in ethical practices. When John took the stage, he felt a wave of emotion, realizing the significance of this moment. "Good evening, everyone," John began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "It is an honor to stand before you today and share the journey of Integrity First. Our story is one of resilience, transformation, and the unwavering belief that integrity must be at the heart of everything we do." As John spoke, he recounted the key moments that had defined their journey, the challenges they had faced, the transformation of Richard Lawson, the unexpected partnership with Edward Marshall, and the countless lives they had touched along the way. He emphasized the importance of ethical leadership and the responsibility that each individual and organization had to promote integrity. "Our mission is far from over," John concluded, "but we have seen firsthand the power of integrity to transform lives, businesses, and communities. Let us continue to strive for a world where ethical practices are the norm, not the exception. Together, we can create a future built on trust, respect, and compassion." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to the impact of John's words. Delegates approached him afterwards, expressing their admiration and eagerness to collaborate with Integrity First. John knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with endless possibilities and opportunities to make a difference. Back home, the Carter family celebrated John's successful speech and the continued growth of Integrity First. Emily and Tommy had watched the live stream of the summit, and they were filled with pride and inspiration. "Dad, your speech was incredible," Tommy said, his eyes shining with admiration. "You've inspired so many people, and I know we can do even more together." Emily added, "We're so proud of you, John. Your dedication and passion have brought us this far, and there's no limit to what we can achieve." John smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Thank you, both of you. We've come a long way, and I couldn't have done it without your support. Let's continue to build on what we've started and make a lasting impact." As the Carters looked towards the future, they knew that their journey would continue to be filled with challenges and triumphs. They were committed to their mission of promoting integrity and compassion, and they were ready to face whatever came their way. Richard Lawson, too, continued his journey of redemption. The success of his memoir and his ongoing work within the prison system had given him a new sense of purpose. He remained in close contact with John, sharing updates on his progress and seeking guidance on how to further contribute to society. One day, Richard received news that his parole hearing had been scheduled. His transformation and efforts to make amends had not gone unnoticed, and there was a strong possibility that he would be granted parole. The prospect of freedom filled Richard with hope, but also a sense of responsibility. When the day of the hearing arrived, Richard was nervous but determined. He spoke candidly about his past, his regrets, and the changes he had made. John and other supporters of Integrity First submitted letters of support, highlighting Richard's commitment to making amends and his contributions to the organization's mission. After careful consideration, the parole board granted Richard's release. The news was met with a mixture of relief and joy. John was there to greet Richard as he walked out of the prison gates, a free man for the first time in years. "Welcome back, Richard," John said, extending a hand. "This is a new beginning." Richard shook John's hand, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, John, for everything. I'm ready to start this new chapter and continue making a difference." As Richard reintegrated into society, he became an active advocate for prison reform and corporate ethics. His story of redemption served as a powerful reminder that change was possible, no matter how far one had strayed. The Carter family, Richard, and Edward Marshall continued to work together, united by their shared commitment to integrity and compassion. Their journey had been marked by challenges and triumphs, but through it all, they had remained steadfast in their mission to create a better world. As they moved forward, they knew that their work was far from over. But with each step, they were building a legacy of hope, resilience, and unwavering integrity that would inspire future generations to follow in their footsteps. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you like the story. Also watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.